Now, he had some great insights about combining several different components from industries, from sewing machines, from agricultural conveyor belts, and he really invented the assembly line. What's interesting is that the reason why the assembly line, his big vision was, if I could make cars more efficiently, if I could lower the cost of making a car, then all the people that worked on building the cars could also afford to buy one. That was actually the big insight. The thing is that sort of efficiency back then, you only kind of gained that efficiency if you built one car. And a matter of fact, not only one car, but one color of car. So there's a Henry Ford quote, you can have a Model T in any color you want as long as it's black. So this vision, which literally transformed the world, almost killed his business. So the competition came out, and they built new models for different market segments. They came up with financing. They advanced the technology that was going into the cars. But Henry Ford refused to do anything other than build the Model T in black. Engineers from the factory floor would write him flowery letters, "Dear esteemed Mr. Ford, we have improved the quality of the clutch that improves the driving experience, and we highly recommend that we adopt this new clutch." He would go down to the floor, find that engineer, and fire. "You're gone. I want no innovation." And his market share started clicking down as all of these other companies were building competing cars designed for specific market segments. What about Thomas Edison? Anybody put a light bulb icon in their presentation that's coming up? It's almost a requirement, right? Really horrible clip art light bulb. "Oh, I've got a great idea." So the light bulb represents great ideas because Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, right? He didn't invent? No. When he first filed a patent for a light bulb, he couldn't. It was denied because the patent already existed. He was actually in a race with a bunch of other companies trying to figure out what the right filament was, the right material for the filament so that the light bulb was actually marketable, that it had a market. And it wasn't really him that was in there doing it. He had a technical co-founder and a team of engineers that were working on the problem. Thomas Edison, though, was kind of the PR guy, right? So he was nicknamed the Wizard of Menlo. The Wizard of Menlo Park, his sort of incubator. And so that's what, Cub reporters would come in to interview Thomas Edison. He'd staring out the window, and that press handler would say, "Shh, Mr. Edison is imagining the future." He actually would comb patent archives to try to figure out what his next invention was. So he was literally looking in the past to invent the future. But he loved the myth of the visionary. And what about Steve Jobs? I remember the very first time Eric Ries did a Lean Startup talk that I attended. It was like 20 or 30 of us in the audience. And of course, Steve Jobs was brought up. "What do you mean all this Lean Startup stuff? Steve Jobs didn't use Lean Startup." So you probably know the definitions of sustaining innovation and disruptive innovation. Sustaining is what large companies do typically. They're incrementally improving existing markets, whereas disruptive innovation is turning a market on its head or completely inventing a new market. So I like to ask, who thinks the iPhone was incremental or sustaining technology? 2 hands, 3, handful. How many think that the technology was disruptive? And the rest of you have no opinion? So in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, that the technology was incremental. It was sustaining. They actually had their own products that came out before it. There were 2 decades of smartphones that preceded the iPhone. So I think it was incremental. There's no doubt, however, that the iPhone itself disrupted a market, right? It completely turned the phone market on its head. It literally wiped out startups off the face of the earth almost overnight. There were these satellite startups around Qualcomm in San Diego. So Qualcomm was a big cellular technology company, and so you had cellular phone startups that surrounded Qualcomm, and so you would have these startups that would use GPS technology to track your teenager. So you would have to buy, back in those days, it seems crazy, $150 a month for a good data plan, and then the startup's business model was charging $30 a month on top to be able to track your teenagers. iPhone comes out, somebody writes an app that tracks your teenager, it costs 99 cents, startup gone. Right? So there's no doubt that it disrupted the market. But what I think disrupted is the fact that they opened up the App Store to third-party developers, because that's what turned the iPhone into a platform. That's what enabled the startup to develop a 99-cent app. And so you have all these free apps and these 99-cent apps completely disrupted. It's because the phone was now a platform. Steve Jobs opposed opening up the App Store to third-party developers. Nobody's a visionary. How come he didn't see it? True visionaries are those that relentlessly pursue the change they want to see in the world, not how they're going to get there. So actually, all these guys were visionaries because they were willing to listen to the market and respond. Right? So it's not just sticking to the plan. And that's what you guys are all learning how to do and doing and succeeding at. And so that's really what the birth of this lean startup movement has been all about. So I want to tell you a story. So I have a background doing startups. I lived through the 90s, early 2000s dot-com boom and bust. Was in some successes, some massive failures. I mentioned over here at this table that I had massive failures, and they go, that seems to be a recurring theme this weekend. And I said, well, that's good. That means your mentors and advisors are telling the truth. So some middling successes as well. But in the early 2000s, after the collapse of the dot-com boom, there were a number of different people that were trying to figure out, well, why are we teaching startups to act like big companies? So why are we taking startups and teaching them that they need to have departments, marketing and operations and engineering and support, and set them all up in their own little areas of the company, and we're going to grow them into their own silos, just like we do with large enterprises? Why are we doing things that way? Why are we teaching startups only how to execute based upon their business plan? And so I launched a marketing service called Sales and Marketing R&D in the early 2000s, and that was like, let's take some of that rigor, that learning iteration type of principle that engineering already does, and let's move it into sales and marketing. And I tried to sell that to startups. And so I joined this startup it's a middle 2000s. I joined as an interim VP of marketing. So I'm really excited. They've got a great product idea. It's already in the market. They have 3 or 4 customers. They have a world-class engineering team. They've got a visionary that came up with these crazy algorithms that allow people to store data more efficiently and do complex queries against the data. So that sounds cool. They've got field salespeople all across the country out selling. I'm pretty excited. But I'm also got this sales and marketing R&D thing. So I got to execute, right, on my marketing, but I also want to be in this learning mode. We've got 3 or 4 customers. So when I join the company, I talk to the VP of sales, and I say, well, first thing, I need to go talk to all of our existing customers. He's all like, well, why? You're in marketing. And I said, well, I want to learn why they bought our product. I want to learn what problems we're solving. I want to learn how to find more people like those that have already purchased, because that's how we're going to grow. Nope. Can't go talk to them. I own those relationships. You have questions? Ask me, and I'll go to them. I'm like, wow. Here's another example. We've taught this company already how to act like a big business. So all of those individual cells that I was talking about, the sales, the marketing, the operations, those actually are constructed based upon Henry Ford's assembly line, just as if the cells were putting together a car. And what happens in large enterprises is that as those cells grow into those silos, they come up with rules of engagement. These are the rules that you're allowed to talk to this department if you follow these rules. It's crazy, right? So in order to get anything done, you have to work your way up and down all of these silos and across the whole company in order to get anything done. It's slow, it's inflexible, and all of these departments are created that have no idea who the customer is anymore. Well, so what happens is I generate a lot of leads, but we don't close any deals. And we miss our numbers. So what happens when you miss your numbers? The board talks to you, the CEO, says, yeah, you told me there was a great pipeline, you missed all your numbers, what's going on? CEO goes over to the VP of sales and goes, how come you're not closing any deals? Board of directors just jumping all over me. You told me everything was great. The VP of sales goes, it's the VP of marketing's fault. But this time the CEO goes, no, that's why we got rid of the last VP of marketing. We've got a new marketing person in. It can't be marketing. He's like, okay. He runs over to me and he goes, okay, you can go talk to the customers now. I go, okay, let's go. Let's go to work. Go talk to first customer. First customer is a telco. If any of you have tried to or are going to try to sell into telcos, the thing you have to understand is telcos love to take startups' products. They love to run pilot programs. And if you ever go into their office, which sort of looks like a lab, you can see all of the other startups' products on the shelves, unopened packages, unopened servers. They're in pilot program mode. That's where our product was, customer number 1. I'm all like, yeah, that kind of is worrying. Customer number 2, literally the brother-in-law of one of our board of directors. This is not a good sign. I can ping the server, I know it's up, but by the time I talk to him, he's all like, yeah, we're not really using it because we don't really do database queries. I'm all like, well, why are you listed as a customer? The third customer, though, I'm hanging my hat on this third customer. They're a hot startup. They're like just got valued at, $1 billion. Tons of press, tons of media, they're just hot. We're like, yeah, they chose us. Call them up, finally get this guy on the phone. It's like, you guys are doing awesome. And they're like, yeah, thanks. We're cranking. I go, yeah, I just wanted to know, why did you choose us? Why are you using our product? Because we want to use that in our marketing and all the rest. And he's all like, oh, yeah, I got some bad news. We don't actually use your product. I'm like, what? We're using you in case studies. We're using you in PR. I just had a phone call with a data analyst, and I brought up your name. And he's all like, oh, yeah, no worries. God, we love you guys, But really, for the type of queries we do, we didn't really need your technology. We chose Oracle. So what did I learn? I learned that we had raised millions of dollars and probably spent a good portion of that. I learned that many people in the company for 2 or 3 years had spent all of their time, their resources, the opportunity cost, their creativity, their inspiration, and we had built a product that nobody wants. That's the definition of waste. We built a product that nobody wants. That's why we do lean startup. So my startup now moves the needle. As it was mentioned, we bring an entrepreneurial spirit to very large organizations. So it's kind of ironic to me is that back in the day, we taught startups how to act like big companies. And now my startup, teaching big companies how to think more like startups. And it's a lot of fun, actually. It's a big struggle, but it's a lot of fun. And the reason why they're into it is because, as you all know, you guys are disrupting the world. There's so much change going on, and the change is happening quicker and quicker. And this is one of the things that you'll have to keep in mind, because you're going to face a similar situation as those large companies sooner than you think. competition is everywhere. It's global. It's not, every one of you with a great startup idea, there's somebody else that has it. You probably more than one, 5, 10, maybe 100, maybe 1,000. What is Jeff Bezos going to do next? What is Google going to do next? We've got Uber for cars, Uber for helicopters, Uber for food. How about, Uber for life insurance, Uber for credit cards, Uber for this. What are they going to do next? Our customers are more agile than we are. They've got vast quantities of information on us. They read our reviews. They're all over social media. They know every one of our warts. They can choose from one vendor to another at the drop of a hat. And this is even happening in the B2B world, in deep IT infrastructure. They're re-architecting their IT systems so that when Salesforce is no longer the hippest CRM, they can just slide in the next one. They can change at the drop of a hat. So this is why we have to be close to our customer. It's why we have to be fast. It's why we have to maintain our agility. So you've got the execution side of the house. You have to execute on what's known. Typically, how we do that is measuring tasks, right? Measuring the processes. So as you succeed, as you learn, you actually have to also execute. So lean startup is not just about running experiments and then keep running experiments and then more experiments. It's about once you learn, you have to build execution into it. And this is actually where large enterprises have a huge advantage, right? Because they have millions of customers and a well-oiled, primed execution engine. Startups, you're optimized for search. You're looking in the unknown. And what you have to measure is not tasks, but impact. So as you grow and you're building up staff, you're not measuring people because they do their job description well. You're measuring because they're having impact. And then as you grow, you have to balance execution, search. So everybody has their own definition of lean startup. This is mine. As we know by now, the word lean comes from lean manufacturing, which was about elimination of waste in the production of known value for known customers. So I'm assembling the parts of a car, that's creating value, but it's known. I know the market. And so I'm trying to make that more efficient. In a startup, we don't actually know the value we're creating. We think we do, but the market is the final arbiter. So a lean startup is eliminating the waste in the discovery and creation of new value. And it's across the business model. It's not just products. It's every aspect of your business is learn and then execute. So just because you've got a product done, just because you figured out your MVP, doesn't mean you're done with lean startup. Lean startup is across the business model. So if you're familiar with design thinking, that's sort of the creative, inspirational, deep empathy part of developing solutions. That's sort of one side. On the other side, we use the term lean innovation. The other side is the rigor, right? So it's the science part. If you've heard of Lean Six Sigma, right? So if GE is inventing a new jet engine, you want them to do lean startup. If GE is installing a jet engine on a plane, you want them to do Lean Six Sigma. Because that's the very known side versus the unknown side. So we talk about the 3 E's of lean innovation: empathy, understanding our customers deeply, understanding their needs, their desires, running purpose-built experiments to validate or invalidate our riskiest assumptions. You guys have probably heard the term riskiest assumption. It's in your dreams and nightmares. And then using evidence to make decisions. So data plus insights. And again, I emphasize this is across the business model. This is not just products. So you start with customer empathy. This doesn't mean doing what your customer says. Okay, so there's another famous Henry Ford quote that he actually didn't say, which is if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So there's nothing wrong with asking the question. People use that quote to say, oh, I shouldn't talk to my customers because they don't know. But it's what you do with the information. So if you say, well, I can't build a faster horse, then maybe you're not an innovator. If you say, well, I can make the wheels on the buggy more efficient and the whole system will move faster, then you're a sustaining innovator, an incremental innovator. If you say, I don't need the horse at all, I can put a steam engine on the cart and then go 4 times as fast, then you're a breakthrough innovator. So we have to understand our customers, but it's up to us to come up with the solution idea. We're not doing necessarily what the customer says. We come up with the ideas, and then we apply rigor against those ideas. So we don't implement them just because we believe in them. We're not building faith-based startups. So what do we mean by customer empathy? You guys are probably more advanced than all this, but it's not asking your customers, do you like my idea? Right? So by the time, if you pitch your idea to a customer, you've now asked them to help you. And that's completely opposite of what you're supposed to be doing. You're trying to figure out if you can help them. So this is a pharma example where this elderly woman said in an interview that she has no problems getting the top off of pill bottles. And they said, show us. She went over to a meat slicer to take the top off of her pill bottles. This is a true story. You don't get this stuff in surveys. You don't get this stuff in interviews. You have to go to the source. You have to understand the day in the life of a customer. So you develop your market segments based on that. Did you get a picture of that? Did you? Yeah. I was actually asking the gentleman. You were still up there when I was like. So the market segment is people who share the same pain or passion and speak the same language. If you're selling people square hats, you want to sell to blockheads, not cylinder heads. So don't think in terms of demographics. You're not going after the healthcare vertical. You're going after people who share the same pain or problem and speak the same language. And by speak the same language, I mean that they would refer to each other for solutions. My business moves the needle sells to large enterprises where the C-suite has read Eric Ries's Lean Startup book. It doesn't matter what industry. It's that those people have the same behavior and they refer to each other for solutions. So we all know about all the different ways of running experiments, right? So I won't go into all of these, the famous landing page, Mechanical Turk, Wizard of Oz, Concierge. So those are all fine, kind of get you down the road. But again, when I'm talking experiments, I'm talking about getting out of the building throughout the business model. These are enterprises running real experiments. This middle one here is HR teams trying to figure out whether the employees will eat healthy foods. So they have one bag that says healthy foods, healthy snacks, the other one that says junk food snacks, and they observe and measure how many people take which one. And then inside the junk food is still healthy snacks. And so then they're measuring whether people will still eat it, okay? This company here with the pillows manufactures chemicals that go into nylons, and so this is one of the products that comes out of it. They went into a hotel and asked the hotel manager if they could set up a table and see if business travelers coming in would take one of their pillows and use it instead of the hotel pillows. One of the insights they got was that a lot of business travelers travel with their own pillows. Who knew? I had no idea. But the point is here is that you're trying to validate the behavior of your customer. It's not asking your customer to predict their future. Customers are horrible at predicting their own future. So your experiments need to be such that you're measuring behavior that validates or invalidates your riskiest assumption. And your riskiest assumption, once you've validated it, there's just another risky assumption, right? It's not like you're done. You have to go through and reprioritize the assumptions around your business model and run more experiments. You never stop experimenting. When you're balancing the execution and the search, You're not experimenting in the execution side, but you're continuing to experiment over on the search side. So the evidence, you're always asking why. So it's not only the results of your experiments, but it's also the insights that you gain because you're always asking why. Why are your customers behaving in such a way? And that also allows you to segment your market properly because the why is going to create a pattern that determines what your market segment is. And as much as all of your ideas are for everyone and will conquer the world, your go-to-market is focusing on a narrow market segment where you can prove that you can create value for those people. So we teach that everything inside your business, all of your activities are hypothesis-driven. If we do X, if we build X, if we do X marketing tactic, Y percentage people will behave in way Z, and you have to measure Z. You should not be building product features without the ability to instrument those features, without the ability to see what your customers are doing against those features. If you're building offline products, then you have to figure out how can you engage your customers to come online, or you have to do analog measures, like calling them up on the phone. This is how you build a successful company. Hypothesis-driven. You put a stake in the ground around the behavior you expect to see. By putting a stake in the ground, satisfied customers will log on, upload a video 3 times a week, and share it to 25 friends. By putting a stake in the ground, there's only 3 things that can be wrong. Number 1, the metric was wrong. Oh, well, they're actually only sharing videos 2 times a week. Or it's the wrong market segment. These people don't ever share videos. They don't care about videos. Or there's something wrong with the product. By putting a stake in the ground about the behavior you expect to see, you turn your data into actionable metrics. You can take an action based upon the results. I didn't want it to do that. So in my book, The Lean Entrepreneur, I introduced this concept of the value stream discovery tool. And so these are 7 states that a customer goes through from first becoming aware to becoming passionate. So I love all of the canvases. I love the business model canvas. But one of the hardest things to do is to figure out what are my assumptions? What are my riskiest assumptions? And so this is a way for you to hypothesize throughout your business model and come up with what's my expected customer behavior, what activities must I do in order to see that behavior, and how am I going to measure that behavior? So first I become aware, right? So like an Airbnb example. How did customers become aware for Airbnb? They hacked Craigslist, right? Famous growth hacking story. So right when customers are in most need, they're feeling the pain, they're in most need, is when they were on Craigslist searching for a vacation rental because they're going to a conference and they don't want to stay in a hotel. So they're on Craigslist. Click on an ad, takes them to an Airbnb rental. Now I'm aware. Then you become intrigued. Intrigued is likely your messaging. Your messaging has 2 components. There's the utility promise. I will solve problem X with product Z. And then there's the aspirational component, which is the impact you're going to have by solving that problem. So I was helping an entrepreneur in Toronto. And he's building a music app. And he tells me that if my daughter, uses the app, she'll practice her music more. I'm paying for lessons, singing lessons. The promise is, if she uses the app, she's going to practice more. Gosh, I really want her to do that. So that's the promise. He has to fulfill that promise or he has no business. I asked him, well, why are you building that? Why is that important to you? He's all like, I want to save parents money. And I'm all like, didn't really resonate with me, right? So messaging is all about resonating. I said, no, why are you doing it? I'm spending money. I don't want you to save me money. He's like, oh, well, it's because I'm a musician. I go, okay, that's interesting. So what about being a musician? He said, I want kids to love music. And I'm all like, yeah, me too, right? That's why I'm buying lessons for my child. I hope she grows up to love music. So that's the journey. That's the aspirational part. He can't promise that my kid will love music. He has to promise the utility, and then there's this journey we're going to go on together. So that's intrigued. Then it's trusting. Why are you the right business to fulfill the promise you just made to me? So Airbnb had to do all sorts of things to build trust, right? They had to add insurance. They added testimonials, right? Case studies can do it. My company is big on case studies and references. After trusting, they become convinced. So that's when they actually take the credit card out of the wallet or sign the purchase order. So what are the obstacles that you need to overcome in order to sell the product for them to be convinced? Oftentimes, entrepreneurs try to scale too quickly by automating their marketing funnel or by automating their sales funnel all the way through convinced. And yes, your investors want you to automate because that makes you more scalable. But when you're in learning mode, it's actually better to do it in person, one-on-one, because then you're going to start learning what are the objections that you have to overcome. So instead of just guessing what the objections are, you can actually learn it directly from the customer by engaging the customers first, by learning before executing. Automation is execution. After convinced, you go through this crazy state I call hopeful. Your customer hopes they made the right decision. So you ever log on to a web product and then you're like, holy crap, I have no idea what to do next. It's too complex, right? They call it the blank slate effect. You have to remove all friction it takes for the person to try to achieve the value that you promised them as quickly as possible. Facebook figured out that their most engaged, satisfied customers had 10 friends within 1 week. So that's why when you first start on Facebook, they're asking for your address book, and they're making all sorts of friend suggestions, because their work is to get you to 10 friends within the first week. I like to use the example of you buy a kid a big electronic car for the holidays. They're opening it up, they're all like, yeah, God, this is awesome. And then you're like, snap, I forgot to buy batteries. And you run off to the store to buy batteries, and you come back, and the car's discarded in the corner, and the kid's sitting inside the box. Yeah, this is so much fun. And you're like, ah. That's why you buy toys, boxes stamped, batteries included. Batteries included, so you can try the value proposition as quickly as possible. Reduce the friction between buy and try. So once you've done that, hopefully your customers become satisfied. Satisfied is you fulfilling the promise that you made into intrigued. How do you measure that? It's because they're using the product in the way that you hypothesize they should use the product. They're actually logging on, actually uploading a video 3 times a week and sending it to 25 friends. Airbnbs maybe is somebody will rent an apartment 3 nights every 6 months. It's a long gap. But what you're measuring is the repeated usage. And you can use social media to measure that, or online forums. If people are engaged in the forums, then that could be an indication of satisfaction. If you have an offline product that requires peripheral products, the purchase of the peripheral products is an indication that they're still using the product. Or it could be consumables. You're satisfied with your printer if you can continue to buy cartridges for the printer. So you have to figure out, if it's an offline product, how do you bring them online in order to measure your hypothesis of satisfaction? And of course, when you figure out what are the minimum features that you need to provide in order to get people to satisfaction, that's your MVP, right? Then comes passionate. People don't even think about the passionate part. People think if they build a great product, the customer will automatically be passionate about it, but it's not true. Sometimes it's true. I love my iPhone. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's a great user experience, but often it's something outside of the product. It's somewhere else in the business model. And that's why you have to continue to experiment outside the product. So nobody's passionate about buying shoes online. Why are people passionate about Zappos? He delivers happiness. It's their customer service. They randomly upgrade people's shipping overnight. You're a woman, you buy a pair of shoes, you're like, God, but I don't know what they look like. I have to wait a whole week to get my shoes? Oh, it shows up the next day. Oh, that's awesome. God, they look horrible. But you get to send them back, right? They've already paid for the shipping to send them back, so you're still happy. And they send the next pair before waiting for the first pair back. Maybe it's marketing. Nobody's passionate about a content marketing platform, so why are people passionate about HubSpot? People are passionate about HubSpot because they do great content marketing. They teach small business owners how to be better entrepreneurs. If they become better entrepreneurs, maybe they can take their family to Italy in the summer. What's the aspirational component? They want to be a better entrepreneur. HubSpot can't promise them to be a better entrepreneur, but the software plus the great content marketing, the free ebooks, the web tools, the blog posts, helping them become better entrepreneurs. So maybe marketing is what gets them to passionate. Maybe it's because they go green and lower their carbon footprint. Maybe it's that they give away shoes to the shoeless for every pair that you buy. So what outside your product might be what delivers passion? And it's still in the B2B world, it's the same thing. How are you going to make the person who purchases you a hero inside their organization? Remember that even in the business world, they're human beings that make the purchases, right? And they're driven by emotion just like the consumers are. What's going to make them a hero? What's going to reduce their risk? Are they going to lose their job because they're choosing this product? The reason why you're so focused on passionate is because passionate, the behavior that you expect to see, they invite your friends, they tell their colleagues, they do case studies. They're putting new people into the top of your marketing funnel without you spending a dime on marketing. That's the indication that you're ready to spend money on marketing, is you see organic growth. Marketing is not about creating buzz. Marketing is about amplifying the buzz that your product already creates. So hopefully you find this useful. It's a great way to flesh out the activities that you should do into your business model canvas that's going to drive behavior that you can measure so that you grow. And growth looks like this. Actually, it looks like that. Well, actually, it's all of that. It goes flat, and then you go, what do I have to do to my business model again? Oh, it goes up again, then it flattens. The hockey stick is not true. Nobody does hockey stick. It's growth, flat, growth. Hockey stick is actually, if you think about it, it's sort of like an inverse mullet. It's still, business in front, party in the back. All right, so my front table here is all laughing. The rest of you are like, so the flow that you build your company, I don't know which stages you all are at, but you start with customer empathy. You're actually then going to MVPs of ones, right, of small number of people. I was helping an entrepreneur in Wisconsin. Am I going way over time here, or am I doing all right? Okay. It's helping an entrepreneur in Madison, Wisconsin. He's building a fashion app. I don't know why all my stories have to do with fashion, especially based on the way I dress. But what you could choose an article of clothing, you hit a shuffle button, and it completes your wardrobe. I said, okay, cool. I'll never use it, but it sounds like a cool idea. So it's a sunny day in Madison, Wisconsin. Kids are coming back to go to college. The streets are just teeming with people. I said, what's your biggest problem? How can I help you? He's like, I need 1,000 customers. Okay. How many do you have? 0. You don't need 1,000. You need 1. Go outside. Find one person on the street willing to push the shuffle button. He's like, yeah, okay. Is that it? I go, yeah, get up, go outside. Find one person that'll click that shuffle button. Building a startup is all about hustle. It's not about asking me what to do. It's like, no, go find one person. That's what your MVP is trying to find ones. From those single people, you're trying to create a pattern that represents a market segment, right? That group of people that share the same pain or passion and speak the same language. And once you find that, your high-value customer, then you're completing that whole market funnel. And then only after you can automate as much as possible that one market funnel are you then looking at your adjacent markets. And as you're starting to look at your adjacent markets, then all of the financial metrics start to become important. Your cost of acquisition and your annual recurring revenue and your lifetime value of customers. And then it's the final stage is where, can I do this? Can I scale and become profitable at scale? So investors want to go straight to financials, like automate and scale. But you have to have the discipline to start small to go big. All big businesses started small, pretty much by definition. You have to start small to go big. So we get back to that balance of executing versus search. And so now if you've got this functioning business model, you've actually built out this whole execution team. And guess what? The people that you hired to do the search don't like to do the execution. So this becomes an HR issue. It becomes processes. You as founders, do you know how to execute? Do you know how to manage people that are executing? So this is the tough part of scaling a startup, is implementing the processes. And can you do that without destroying the culture that got you where you were? And there's a lot of interesting work being done out by different startups on how to create cultures in a new way, that it's not based upon the way big businesses have always done it. It's not based upon silos. So you should it's part of your innovation. It's part of your business model innovation to actually figure out how to structure your company to maintain the culture. So the former chief culture officer of GE, right? So employee of 250, 300,000 employees, says that the old school way, right? The way that was built out of the Industrial Revolution is that culture came out of the structure, and the structure looked like the assembly line. And today, he says, we have to allow the structure to emerge from the culture. And so the culture is this mixture of search and execution. And it's a crazy mixture. And it's cross-functional. It's not siloed. And it's agile. And it's close to the customer. And it's being willing to act bold. So you have to maintain this search ethos, this entrepreneurial spirit, even as you succeed and grow. And it's a tough game. So then that value stream discovery that I showed you before actually becomes your dashboard, because you've got all of these activities that are measuring how your customer has moved from aware to passionate. And after you've done that with one market segment, you go and you do it with another market segment. And so now you've got this business where you're juggling multiple market segments, different phases of the business are in different states, you're optimizing different components. How are you going to assemble a team to fix the bottleneck that I have between download? This is my company. So my big bottleneck right now is they download our tools or our lead magnet, and the number of people I get them to actually request a proposal from us is too small. So I rally resources to run experiments to try to break through that bottleneck. And after I do, the bottleneck will just emerge somewhere else, right? The bottlenecks never stop. So investors, at least in my neck of the woods, love to still talk about IP strategy. If you've got the right kind of company, your IP strategy may be very important. But your ultimate competitive advantage is the relationship that you have with your customer. So when you're doing customer development and you're understanding your customers, it's not one and done. It's each person that you go out and you communicate with, you're establishing a relationship. And the insights that you glean from that relationship is your competitive advantage. You taking advantage quickly of customer insights is your competitive advantage. It has to be built into your business model. True visionaries are those that relentlessly pursue the change they want to see, not the way you're going to make the change. You have to have a vision. You rally your troops around a vision. We're going to go take this hill. But you have to read the market and go where the market tells you to go. And that's still part of the art of entrepreneurship, knowing when your market's telling you something. So thank you very much.